Chapter 1, Task 3. Today we're going to talk about literal equations. A literal equation is an equation with more than one variable. Sometimes you will see these called multivariable equations. Solving a literal equation follows the exact same steps as solving regular equations. So think back to task 1 and 2 when we were solving equations, and if you recall, we would get rid of the fractions first, and we would also get rid of parentheses. So whichever one was in the equation, we would get rid of each of those first. Then we would add or subtract. Our next step is multiply or divide. And then lastly, we would take care of the square roots. Just as a reminder, when we're dealing with square roots, we use the letters SQRT in Desmos. And when you type those letters in, it'll automatically show you one of these signs. And if you're using one of the calculators, there is a second function button to use one of these square root signs. So let's do some examples. Following these steps up here, for example number 1 says solve for k. We want to get k all by itself. Right now, k is being added by 20. So we want to get rid of the 20. The opposite of add 20 is subtract 20. So we're going to do that to both sides. When I take 20 from the k, it cancels. So I'm left with k equals. On the other side here, I have a variable t, and that's where I took my minus 20. These are not like terms, so I just have to bring down the t and record the minus 20. I know I'm done when I have k all by itself. Our second example, you always want to read the directions up at the top because, again, these equations are going to have more than one variable in them. This one says to solve for v, so we want to get v all by itself. So ask yourself what's happening to v. Well, in this equation, v is being divided by 5. We need to do the inverse or opposite operation of divide by 5, which we know is multiply by 5. That cancels it out. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I'm left with v all alone equals w times 5. It's best practice to put the number before the variable. And that says v equals 5 times m. V's all by itself, so I'm done. Moving on to our third example, it says to solve for m. So I'm just going to read it out loud. It says 2 times m minus p. Well, first up here, I want to get rid of addition or subtraction. And this says minus p. So I want to do the opposite of that, which is add p. I'm going to do that to both sides. That side cancels. I'm left with 2m equals 12f plus p. I cannot combine them because they are not like terms. Again, I read it to myself and it says 2 times m. M is not all by itself. It's being multiplied by 2. The inverse operation of multiply by 2 is divide by 2. That side cancels. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I have to do to the other. This is very important. Since I'm dividing by 2, I have to divide everything on this side of the equation by 2. On the left side, I'm left with m all by itself equals, I'm just going to rewrite this guy, or I'm going to be lazy and just circle my answer since I ran out of room. I cannot simplify any further because 12f and p aren't alike, and I can't divide 12f by 2 or p by 2. So I'm done. All right, example 4. I go up here to my steps. It says get rid of fractions and parentheses first. I don't have any of those, so I'm going to get rid of addition or subtraction. But first, I'm going to see what I'm solving for. It says solve for y. Y is in the middle of X and Z, and then I have an A. So we have 4 variables going on here. We want to get rid of the add A. So the opposite of add A is subtract A, again, from both sides. This side cancels. I bring down everything I haven't used, which in this case is X, Y, and Z, equals 10, take away A. Notice I cannot combine those because 10 does not have an A. So I go up here and read the question again, or the prompt, and it says to solve for Y. Right now, Y is being multiplied by X and Z. Opposite of multiply by X and Z is to divide by X and Z. That cancels my X's and my Z's on this side, which leaves Y all alone. That's good news. But what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Since I divided the left by X and Z, I have to divide the right by A and Z. Since I can't simplify anything, I'm just going to circle my answer. That's it. Next example down here says solve for M. Again, I'm going to look at my equation. I don't have any fractions or divisions, so I'm going to get rid of the subtraction or the addition first. It says negative 6m minus 8. Opposite of minus 8 is to add 8 to both sides. This side cancels. I make sure I bring down everything I haven't used. And on this side, they're not alike, so I'm just going to bring down my 3q, and I'm going to show plus 8 at the end. Again, I read it to myself. It says negative 6 times m. M is not all by itself. Right now, it's being multiplied by negative 6. The inverse operation of multiply by negative 6 is to divide by negative 6. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. I'm left with m equals 3q plus 8 minus 6. I don't have like terms on the top or bottom, so I'm just going to circle my answer. Moving on to the next box. It says D equals 4a minus 2, and it asks us to solve for A. A is on the right side. It says 4a minus 2. I want to get rid of the minus 2. Opposite of minus 2 is to add 2. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. These 2's cancel. On the right side, I'm just left with 4a. On the left side, I have a D and a plus 2. They are not like terms, so I just have to write them side by side. Is A all by itself? Nope, it's being multiplied by 4. So I have to do the inverse operation of multiply by 4, which is divide. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. These guys cancel. I'm left with A all alone. And I don't have like terms, so I'm just left with D plus 2 over 4. The next example, I'm going to erase this so we can read the directions, said to solve for T. Using blue. So this time is a little different. We do have the first step up here. It says to get rid of fractions and parentheses. And in this case, we do have a parenthesis, so we have to get rid of that first. So to get rid of that, I have to distribute. Pen. So I'm going to rewrite the left side because I'm not doing anything right now with the h minus 8 or the equal sign. I'm going to distribute the 4/5 to the t and the 4/5 to the negative 5 by multiplying. 4/5 times t just becomes 4/5 t. Can't say that. And then 4/5 times negative 5, when you plug that in your calculator, you should get negative 4. So we did the first step. Now we look at the second step. It says add or subtract. Right now t is being subtracted by 4, so we're going to do the inverse of subtract 4, which is add 4. That cancels. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other. In this case, we do have like terms, so I'm going to bring down my h. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. And I didn't do anything with my 4/5 t. So now I need to get rid of the 4/5 t. This is a tricky one. To get rid of a fraction that's multiplying a variable, I'm going to do the reciprocal. when you multiply by a fraction, you actually, or I'm sorry, when you divide by a fraction, you actually multiply by the inverse. So I'm going to flip it. Not inverse, I meant to say reciprocal. Sorry about that. So to get rid of this 4/5, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. These guys cancel. I've got t left all by myself, and I'm going to come down here, guys, because I ran out of room. So I'm left with t on the right side. Since I multiplied by 5/4 over here, I have to multiply everything on this side by 5/4, and I'm really running out of room, which means I have to distribute. This one's a long one. So I distribute the 5/4 to the h and the 5/4 to the -4. And when we do that, I distribute down here 5/4 h, and 5/4 times -4 is -5, and then that equals t. That was a tricky one. I hope you can read my handwriting. All right, last one in this row. It says to solve for p. If you can see under the green here, it says solve for p. P is on the right side, and it looks like it's being divided by 5, and it's squared. So if you take a look up here at our steps, it says lastly to take care of square roots. So we're going to leave that guy for last. But we do need to get rid of the multiply by 5. And the inverse of multiply by 5 is to divide by 5. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Cancels out my 5s. I'm left with p squared. And we're going to rewrite everything on the top. AXH plus 2k, and I'm just going to put that all over 5. To get rid of a square root, just like I showed you up here, to get rid of a square, we're going to use the square root. So what that's going to look like is I will put the square root over the p squared. When it does that, it lifts the square and just becomes p. Since I put the right side under the square root, I have to do the same to the left side. So my final answer is going to be p over all of this under a square root sign. And that's as far as we have to go for that one. All right, I want you to take a few minutes and on your own try the first, second, and third equations, and then in just a minute you can check your answers. And note that in each of these three, they want us to solve the equation for y. I was looking for those directions. Now I see them. It says solve each equation for y. All right, go ahead and try.